Welcome back, everyone. We'll kick off our second week of lecture presentations with some tips on blogging and writing in general. Last week we looked at an overview of our class, Writing for Online Media, and we went through the process of starting your own blog and using our class wiki. If you have any questions on any of that, please let me know. You can post any comments on our discussion forum at fordham.blackboard.com. This week, as you're starting to create your own blogs based on the guidelines I provided last week, here are some tips to remember as you go along. First, we'll look at blogging. If you haven't already looked at my prior presentations, especially how to start a blog, please do so as soon as you have a chance. Once you have your online journal set up, here are 6 tips for an effective blog post. Number 1, the titles of your blog posts are important. Think of them as newspaper headlines or magazine article headlines. They need to grab the reader's attention and at least hint at what the subject matter of the post will be about. Don't make them too long or unwieldy. Many readers subscribe to the blog content they wish to read, so they receive new blog posts through RSS feeds. RSS stands for Real Simple Syndication, and it delivers your blog entries to your audience via their news feeds. That means that often your readers will likely only see your headline for each new post, and maybe the lead sentence or two, and possibly a primary image you may have included. So the choice of words you select for your headline, your blog post title, is vital to piquing a reader's interest and making him or her want to read further. Therefore, give some thought to your titles. View them as headlines and consider the right words that will engage your audience and entice them to read what you have to say in your post. Number 2, remember that blogging is storytelling. Whatever subject matter you're writing about, you need to make it interesting. Whether it's fiction or nonfiction, you're telling a story. As the semester progresses, I'll provide feedback on your entries, and we'll learn some rules and tips of rhetoric that will make your writing stronger. Think about what you want to say, then figure out how to say it. What's the best way to tell your story, whatever it may be? A good exercise is to read other material and ask yourselves which content connects with you and why. How did that author use words and sentence structure to engage you and keep you interested? How did they begin? How did their story unfold? How did it end? Likewise, look at other blog posts, online articles, and other forms of writing, and see which ones failed to captivate you. Why did they fail? Was it just a choice of subject matter? Something about it grabbed your attention, otherwise you wouldn't have even noticed it. So where did the author lose you as a reader? Try to avoid making those same mistakes yourselves. Remember, at almost all levels, you're telling a story through your writing. Number 3, design is important. I don't expect all of your blogs to look completely professional right from the beginning. We will be tweaking our individual weblogs as the semester progresses. Each one of your blogs will evolve and become better and better in the weeks to come. But as you begin choosing a template for your blog and making those initial choices about layout and appearance, remember the key rule: don't make it difficult to read. Again, consider some other content online that you might have seen. Which websites and blogs do you enjoy looking at that keep you coming back? The internet has become an extremely visual medium, so we have to consider our choices for color, background images or wallpaper, pictures that we use to illustrate your blog posts, the size of the text, and other aesthetic factors. It's okay if your blog starts out bare bones at first. We'll use the feedback that we get to spruce it up as we go along. But keep in mind how the design will impact what your reader sees and how they will react to the words you're sharing. Some traditional writers have no control over the final appearance of the articles they write for newspapers, books, or magazines. But online writers often do have some control, and in many cases all of the control, over both the words and the visuals. And we'll see in the weeks to come just how the two go together hand in hand. Number 4, link, link, link. A unique feature of online media is the ability to jump from one article to another through hyperlinks. We'll talk more about that in my next presentation when I discuss hypertext, and in a few weeks when we talk about social network theory. But for now, just understand that including links in your blog posts will help reach a larger audience, will provide context to what you're writing about, and will aid you in engaging with the broader blogosphere as your posts start showing up via search engines. The major blogging platforms such as WordPress and Google's Blogger make it easy to insert links. They often have icons right on top of your text box, so with one click of the button you can turn highlighted text into a link. You don't want to overdo it and make every other word a link, but you want to selectively choose the appropriate words or phrases that your reader might want to click to see what you're referring to or retrieve more information about a person, news item, or concept you might have referenced, and so on. We can't do that in print or on television or radio, or when speaking to someone face to face. It's a powerful tool available online, and one of the key things that makes online writing different. In addition to guiding your readers to other points of interest along the cyberverse, you should be surfing the net yourselves to find online places of interest. So number 5, engage in the blogosphere. As I mentioned in my first presentation, the blogosphere is the online community of blogs. Your online journal won't be in a vacuum, just as other forms of communication are parts of the environments around them. Read other blogs and websites, especially the ones that relate to the topic you've chosen to write about. Wherever appropriate, add your own comment to what you've read. In your own blog, if someone has left a comment to something you've written, respond. Online writing can be a two-way interactive dialogue between the writer and his or her readers, unlike traditional media, which tends to broadcast their messages one way to an often passive audience. 6. Write on a regular basis. The frequency of your posts is important. For the purposes of this class, I ask that you post at least once a week on your blog. As we'll see when we talk about online narratives, even though individual blog posts can stand on their own, they also fit into the larger scope of your overall online journal. Some of your readers might stumble upon your blog and read one post and never return, but many others might read week after week, anticipating your next entry, maybe going back and reading some of your previous posts. A blog is made up of multiple entries. It's not just a static, one-shot only kind of writing. As the author, you also want to show some stability with your frequency. Some choose to write every day, others write every other day, some write Mondays through Fridays, others write only on weekends, some write bi-weekly, some write every month. As I mentioned, for our class, I ask that you write a minimum of once a week. Those are some basic tips on blog writing. Blog post titles are important, blogging is storytelling, design is important, linking is important, engage in the blogosphere, and write on a regular basis. Now here are a few tips for writing in general. Depending on the topic you choose for your blog, you'll choose a specific voice for your writing style. Will it be casual, conversational, serious, funny? Which point of view will you select? First person, second person, third person? You'll have to decide what's appropriate for the content you're writing about. The more you read and write, the more you'll learn what works and what doesn't. You'll learn techniques to make your messages connect with your readers and stick with them. One of the first rules of writing that you'll probably heard 1,000 times before is write what you know. That's why I asked you to choose a topic for your blog that you feel passionate about, something that you'll enjoy writing about throughout the semester. The best writing feels genuine. You can write the most genuine content when it's something you know. Written well, it will connect with people who also know it, and they'll see it through your eyes, and it will hopefully also connect with people who don't know it, but will experience it through your words as if they were living it themselves. Next, research what you don't know. Even the topics that you feel you're an authority on, don't be afraid to research the details. Look up correct spelling of proper names, check any facts and figures you might be mentioning, quote any sources properly, don't just rely on memory, and link wherever appropriate. You want your readers to trust you and not doubt the truth behind any statements you make. When you do make mistakes, and rest assured, we all will, the beauty of online writing is that it permits us to make quick edits to correct those mistakes. In those cases, we need to be transparent and show our readers that we value the truth. They will trust you even more going forward. Another writing tip standard is show, don't tell. You don't want your writing to be boring and matter of fact. You want it to have a vitality so that your readers will see and hear and feel and smell everything you're showing them through your words. That way, your message will linger with them as if they witness what you're saying firsthand, instead of being told something secondhand or thirdhand. Provide details, use engaging phrases, present your thoughts through sentence structures that don't just walk your readers through the facts, but allow them to be part of the story as if they were experiencing the facts themselves. Your writing can do that. To do that, you have to use strong verbs and nouns. A thesaurus and dictionary are now accessible online, so it makes it easier to use a stronger vocabulary in your writing. That doesn't mean load your writing with multisyllabic, hard-to-comprehend words and phrases. It just means don't just rely on a simplistic vocabulary. Choose the right words that properly capture the meaning of what you want to say. It will elevate your writing to an entire new level. Next, check spelling, punctuation, and grammar. Even though blog posts aren't term papers or doctoral dissertations, proper spelling and grammar are extremely important in making your readers comprehend your message. Depending on the voice you choose, you can still write in a casual conversational style if that's the most appropriate, but it should still be clear and engaging. If your readers are stumbling, trying to understand where one sentence ends and another begins, if they can't understand a word you've just used because you've spelled it the wrong way, then your message runs the risk of becoming lost. We'll talk about the spelling debate later in the semester, but for now just realize that knowing the rules of spelling, punctuation, and grammar are not meant to handcuff you and limit your creativity. They're meant to provide some uniform starting point so everyone can understand what you're saying as you launch into your world of ideas. Finally, remember that writing is rewriting. They say that one of the toughest parts of writing is getting started. You all probably know the stress of staring at a blank page or a blank computer screen with a deadline looming and not knowing where to even begin to fill it up with words. A good approach is to think about what you want to say and transcribe it verbatim, even if it's rough and far from perfect. The magic happens when you come back and rewrite it. As you read the raw words you've written during your first attempt, with all their imperfections, you instantly notice what doesn't work. And that's when the real writing begins, when you choose the better words, when you rearrange the phrases and start structuring your sentences and paragraphs in a more impactful manner. Suddenly, you're taking your ideas and molding them into something that resonates. As you proofread your words, if they make you stumble or pause, then you know they need to be fixed, because they will certainly make your readers stumble and pause. You'll see the difference between a first draft and a polished piece of writing. You'll find better ways to convey your ideas. You'll discover better methods to capture the tone of how you want to deliver your messages, and you'll feel like your readers and know what's strong and what could use improvement. It often helps to have a second pair of eyes, some outside editor review your work, but that's a luxury that's not always available, especially when you're writing your own blog. So you need to serve as your own editor and learn what works and what doesn't. Learn to recognize and fix some of your own common writing mistakes, and eventually make your writing the very best it can be. So those are 6 writing tips. Write what you know, research what you don't, show, don't tell, use strong verbs and nouns, check spelling, punctuation, and grammar, and don't be afraid to rewrite your work. I mentioned using strong words, more powerful nouns and verbs. We all fall into the bad habit of relying on lazy, repetitive, weak words. There are a bunch of what I call empty words that don't do justice to the messages you're trying to convey. It's like an architect choosing inferior building materials. As a writer, you have the entirety of language to help you say what you want to say. Why limit it to boring, empty words? Will those weak words connect with your readers the way more specific words will? Think of some words that are empty, that don't fully capture what you want to say, that don't paint the picture from your imagination the way stronger, more descriptive words can. What are some of those overused weak words that creep into our vocabulary and then into our writing, watering down what we have to say? Here are a few. Each of these words might have a place, but too often they are overused when another word would be stronger and more effective. Sometimes they're even misused, and a better word would be more accurate and descriptive. As you proofread your writing, try to catch these and other empty words and replace them with something better. How often do you use these empty words? Very, really, good, bad, awesome, get. There's so many others. Aren't there far better words we can use to make our writing more impactful? Sometimes William Shakespeare invented words because the words at his disposal didn't suffice. Words are our tools. Dig around for the best ones and use them in creative ways to make your readers fully understand exactly what you have in mind. Here are a few common writing mistakes that a lot of people make. When we recognize them, we can fix them, and our writing will be the stronger for it. First, a common blunder is when the subjects, objects, and verbs don't agree. In this example, my sister is smarter than me. What's the grammatical mistake? It should technically be my sister is smarter than I. Me would be an object, but in this case, I is correct because it is a subject. Continue the phrase to test it out. My sister is smarter than I am. You wouldn't say my sister is smarter than me am. Now, sometimes the correct usage might sound too stilted or overly formal. We live in a society that's embraced a more casual vernacular, a more laid-back way of communicating. Especially online, we might not always use complete sentences. We might not hesitate from using slang words or less grammatically correct speech. But we should know the rules before deciding to break them. There certainly are times when you want to break the rules. If you're writing dialogue or quoting what someone says in conversation, incorrect grammar might be the way to go. But remember that every rule was created for a reason. If you see a mistake and the correction doesn't sound right either, then maybe you'll need to consider an alternate way of saying it before deciding that you'll break the rule and stick with the grammatically incorrect way. Ask yourself, is that honestly the best way to communicate that idea? Another common writing mistake is inconsistent tense. What's wrong with this example? Yesterday I had a dream. I'm flying over a field of dandelions. You have past tense in the first sentence, and then present tense in the second sentence. Are you flying now or in the dream? The rule for consistency is to make your idea clear. What are you trying to say? The proper way to write that example is, yesterday I had a dream, I was flying over a field of dandelions. Maybe you might want to stick with the original and intentionally break the rule. You're talking about something that happened in the past, and you want your reader to experience it in the present tense, as if it were happening now. That's a choice, but it needs to be clear, intentional, an intentional choice, not seemingly haphazard mistake. You need to show consistency. If you're awkwardly going back and forth with your tenses, it'll make your writing feel weak and unclear. Another mistake is when pronouns and antecedents don't agree. In the example, everyone should know their limit. What's the mistake? The word everyone is singular, but the possessive pronoun there is plural, so it doesn't match. It should read, everyone should know his or her limit. As I mentioned before, maybe that sounds too formal for your purposes, but it's the right way to say it. If you decide to break the rule and stay with the error, make sure it's for a valid reason. Otherwise, see if there's a better way to write the sentence with other words that would convey the same idea. Another common mistake is the improper use of apostrophes and contractions. Its, its, and your, your, are possessive. Something belongs to it, something belongs to you. Its, it apostrophe s, and your, you apostrophe r, e, are contractions, abbreviated forms of it is and you are. Should've, could've, and would've are contractions of should have, could have, and would have, and shouldn't be written phonetically as two incorrect words, should of and could of. The way we speak out loud and the way we write, even if we aim to be conversational in our writing, should be two different things, because we want readers to understand what they're reading. A very common writing mistake is mistaking similar words that often are not interchangeable, because they don't have the exact same meaning. There's a reason they're different words. E.g. is the Latin exempli gratia, which means for example, but I.e. is id est, which means that is, or in other words. So use e.g. prior to listing some examples, and i.e. when you want to paraphrase something. Affect and effect might sound the same, but they're not. Affect with an A is usually a verb. Affect with an E is usually a noun. The same applies for then and then. Then with an E signifies time. Then with an A is a conjunction used to show a comparison of two words or phrases. A mistake that's become more and more common is ending a sentence or phrase with a preposition. Look at the example, I know it's hard not to. It should be, I know it's hard not to do it. To fix it, continue the phrase. Don't leave it hanging. If the fix sounds awkward or too formal, consider rewording it. Again, if you decide to keep the grammatically incorrect version, make it a deliberate, justifiable choice. Another widely disregarded rule is the splitting of infinitives. Are any of you Star Trek fans? The classic television series from the 1960s had a split infinitive in its weekly opening narration, to boldly go where no man has gone before. My grade school English teacher used to reprimand the show's writers. It should have been to go boldly. Again, the sound of a phrase tends to supersede the correct style when it comes to common usage. The New York Times, ABC News, Time Magazine all tend to split infinitives, but it's still technically wrong. When you see it in your writing, try to correct it. If it sounds terrible, try to reword it. If you decide to stick with the split infinitive, at least make it an intentional choice for a reason. Here's one that's not really a mistake, it just sounds better to avoid it. I'm talking about unnecessary repetition. Let's look at the example, baseball is my favorite sport. I love baseball. I try to go to as many baseball games as I can. The word baseball is repetitive. When you repeat a word too close together, often unintentionally, try to find new words and phrases to replace them. It'll sound much better. For example, baseball is my favorite sport. I love it. I try to go to as many games as I can. Now again, you might want to repeat a word or phrase for rhetorical and dramatic impact, but then make it a clear, obvious choice. Sometimes it might not read the way you intended. We'll talk about rhetoric down the road. In the meantime, know that rules exist for a reason, like traffic laws meant to avoid accidents. But rules can also be broken. For example, to use the traffic law analogy again, in order to avoid a sudden accident, and you have no other choice. So yes, if you have a reason, you can break the rules, but first you should know the rules. Now here are some tips to help you overcome one of the greatest fears of all writers, the dreaded writer's block, when you need to write something with a deadline looming, but you're stuck, unable to come up with anything that you feel is presentable at all. Online writers trying to sustain their frequency of posts often face the same problem. They sometimes hit a brick wall, losing inspiration and motivation, unable to conjure up any ideas or string together any set of words that make sense or feel remotely engaging. That's why I love this comic illustration so much. It's absolutely familiar. A blogger stares zombie-like at the computer screen. He's probably been that way for hours, knowing that his readers are waiting for his next post, but he has absolutely no idea of where to begin, what to say, or even how to fake it. An ambulance probably wouldn't be much help. But here are some suggestions that have worked for me and some of my fellow writers. If you find yourself stuck this semester for this or other classes, maybe one or more of these tips might save the day, or a seemingly endless sleepless night. Number 1, stick to a regular writing schedule. Some folks write better in the morning, others at night. Some during their lunch break, others write better on weekends. Whatever it might be, whatever works best for you, find a set time that will be your time to write, and stick to that schedule. You'll find yourself getting into a rhythm of writing. Your brain will instinctively kick into writing gear during those times, and you'll find yourself facing those awful blank pages and screens less and less. Next, create an evergreen list of ideas. In journalism and publishing, an evergreen list never goes out of date. In other words, like an evergreen tree that never loses its leaves, An evergreen list is full of topics and story ideas that you can go to when you need them. They're timeless. They can fill the void when you have no other topics to write about. Spend some time writing story ideas that might make good blog posts. So if a week comes and you're banging your head against a wall because you don't know what to write about, or it's a slow news day, or the story you had planned to write about all week fizzled and now you're desperate, that handy-dandy evergreen list might save your hide. Try keeping a journal. I'm talking about an old-fashioned journal that only you see. It can be a print notebook that you carry around, or an electronic journal on your tablet or laptop, or even your smartphone. Jot down any ideas that come to you, maybe some gripping words or phrases. And then if you're ever stuck, if you can't come up with that idea, you can skim through its pages or through the saved documents that you've kept, and you might discover a usable idea. I keep a dream journal, writing down whatever nighttime dreams I have, and a few times those dreams have given me ideas for stage plays or screenplays or short stories, or even blog posts that I've written. Your online journal is for public consumption, for the world to read, but a journal like this is for you alone, for those fragments that come to you that you want to remember, even if you never officially use them. But someday you might, and you'll be glad you had them recorded. Never throw away anything that you've written. I'm not saying be a pack rat or a hoarder. I'm telling you to save, not clutter. It's tempting to just toss in the trash or hit delete anything that you've written that doesn't meet your immediate needs. But you never know, that paragraph you wrote, that first draft, that outline which ended up not being right for a specific assignment, might turn out to be a perfect solution when writer's block hits. If you spend hours working on an inspired story idea, only to give up in frustration because you don't know where to go with it, why destroy it and lose it forever? Maybe someday you might reread it and find something salvageable in those words. If you find yourself truly stuck, try talking to other writers. They might have ideas of their own that could bail you out. Seek out those writers who share your interests. Maybe something they've written could serve as the basis for a new piece that you could write, either agreeing with it, building upon it, or arguing against it. A great suggestion is to just take a break and clear your head. Stepping away is often the best way to break out of the block. When you return, you'll often find a new way to approach the writing assignment that you hadn't considered before. Finally, read other blogs, other pieces of writing, especially in your chosen topic. You'll be amazed at the ideas for your own writing that will come flooding into your head. So when the wicked writer's block shows up, don't back down. Stand your ground and face it head on. Stick to a regular writing schedule. Write an evergreen list of ideas. Keep a journal. Don't throw away potentially useful things you've written. Chat with a fellow writer. Take a break. And read other blogs. So there you have some tips on blogging and writing. I hope that proves useful as you start writing your own online journal. If you have any questions, please post them on the discussion board or send me an email at nickleshy@aol.com.